online interaction and some tips on what you might want to put in there. So if you really want interaction in your hybrid and online class, you have to have students interacting with content, students interacting with you, and students interacting with each other. So number one, there's a lot of benefits to student interaction. Because when students, like in the face-to-face class, are grouped and talking to one another, they build a classroom learning community. They help each other to do projects. They discuss ideas. We certainly want to move that into the online component. Students who are grouped in communities say that they're happier with learning. They don't feel isolated or unincluded. So that, again, another benefit for you. And so they do better in your class, and they report being more satisfied with your class, and they can achieve more. So that whole concept of a class community, very, very beneficial to your students. So what tools would you use if you wanted to build this in your class? Well, you definitely want a peer response element. You want them to peer respond, review, even peer instruction in your class. So if you're not using any of those elements, maybe you'd want to add those. Definitely want to engage them in discussion and debates, which is the standard. We all have a discussion. Then any collaborative learning activity where they all have to contribute to a timeline, or all contributed to a brainstorming sheet, or all post a picture. Any collaborative learning activity. Group case studies, excellent. Role playing, and then group projects. When we have a hybrid or online class, it's very easy for us to create learning checkpoints. Back to that research project, we could break it up. Submit your thesis, submit your research, analyze your research. So we're making learning checkpoints, so this huge, big project isn't so overwhelming, everybody's like, I just can't do it. Right? So the combination allows you to make these checkpoints to help your students through the learning process. And then you're really measuring their achievement more effectively as they go from point A to point B. And you could arrange things sequentially so they're aided through that process. So that really helps, specifically our student population. And when students are interacting with content, you certainly want to encourage them to critically think and reflect upon them. So the tools that we would use to do that are my favorite just-in-time tutorials. Knowledge pre- and post-checks are another wonderful principle to use based on cognitive science. So when you start a lesson, you do a little quiz, and this will work. And then you know what your students know or don't. So, and then after a lesson's over, you can do a post-check. And this engages students in the learning process. They have to pay attention. It kind of highlights what they're missing. And allows you to see how engaged they were with the content, where they reflect on what they have read as opposed to taking a test, and have to give you some critical thinking on what the concept, and it works in concept classes, reading journals. Yeah. Another way you could address content interaction is quizzes with built-in feedback that are self-grading, completion grading. So if they miss idea, you're alerted that they all missed question 7. They don't understand what transcendentalism is. And you can do a little, mini lesson on it. So interactive learning activities is when the students are not just reading something. They have to click on something to do that. They have to add a comment to a page. And they're interacting with content. Any kind of graphic organizer. And then metacognitive surveys that ask them to think about their learning. In the learning process. Our last form of interaction is the most important. It's instructor to student, and really does a lot for you. So what the interaction or research is telling us about is that, number one, it really clarifies instructor goals, ethics, expectations, and what they know. And students need that information. So it really helps to build an instructor presence. A lot of times this is found in the syllabus, but there are things that you think are important. So maybe you need to strip those out so those goals are really clarified for your students. And how we show our interaction is through the variety of course communications we have and how we facilitate the course. When we're facilitating a course and communicating, the students feel supported and encouraged. They're like, oh, my teacher is checking in and knows what I'm doing. Another thing that students really want and need and can definitely be a feature of a hybrid class is that timely, frequent, substantive feedback that enhances what they're learning. So that helps them to progress, they can correct their mistakes, and they can move on to the next thing. And so if you're using a range of tools, you know, the speed grader, announcements, a little assignment video, hey, just-in-time tutorial, they're getting that feedback. So we've got to monitor the course, make sure we have a good student experience. So they're participating. I don't want to underestimate the power of an instructor as a model, okay, because we should be modeling like etiquette and how to communicate and academic integrity. So the instructor as a model, powerful force in a hybrid and online class. And another factor that keeps popping up in the research is the instructor voice in discussions. Well, students need that voice because you can bridge them. You can make that thinking bridge in the discussion. And so everybody can read and go, oh, I never made that connection. Facilitating a discussion really gleans a lot of benefits for student comprehension of concepts. We want to promote student collaboration. Maybe you should meet in chat and discuss what's on the test. Or maybe you should all go to the same line, you know, this thing is going, there's 8 people from class going. Let's go to the Van Gogh, whatever. Class announcements, and then we have online office hours and consultations. So I know that's another big instructor transition, going to web conferencing to do online consultations, because you can do individual consultations online using web conferencing tools. And it helps to solicit student feedback. And you know who your good students are, because sometimes I'll go, well, what do you think of the lecture? Or what would you know, if someone's having like a typical student that is on the point, you know, and they're having trouble, sometimes I solicit feedback from them.